Cold bit through Elena's jeans, seeping up from the stone she'd been sitting on for the past hour. Her legs had gone numb somewhere around the 40-minute mark, but she couldn't bring herself to stand. Standing meant making a decision. Sitting meant she could keep pretending she'd driven out here at 4 a.m. just to think. The Columbia River gorge stretched below her, darkness broken only by scattered lights from houses too far away to matter. Wind whipped her brown hair across her face, strands catching in her mouth. She didn't bother pushing them away. 3 weeks. 21 days since Nathan's car went over a cliff 20 miles south of here. 21 days since the police knocked on her apartment door with faces that told her everything before they spoke a word. Loss of control, they'd said. Tragic accident. Liars. All of them. She'd found Nathan's notes 2 days after the funeral, hidden in his gym bag, the one place she almost didn't check. Pages of names, dates, locations, testimony he'd planned to give against the Bratva, against Viktor Volkov specifically. Her baby brother had witnessed something he shouldn't have, agreed to testify, and paid for it with a staged accident that fooled everyone except her. The edge called. Just 1 step, maybe 2. Then the wind would do the rest, and the pain crushing her chest would finally stop. No more waking up, reaching for her phone to text Nathan before remembering he'd never answer. No more eviction notices she couldn't pay. No more failed pitches to editors who'd stopped returning her calls. No more anything. Elena shifted forward. Gravel skittered over the edge, disappearing into darkness. Her heart hammered, but her mind felt eerily calm. This was the same type of cliff that had taken Nathan. Poetic, maybe. Or just pathetic. She couldn't tell anymore. Headlights swept across the overlook behind her. If you want to know who just arrived and what happens next, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who loves a good dark romance. Trust me, this is just the beginning. Elena whipped around, her heart stumbling into a frantic, uneven rhythm. The glare of headlights was so harsh she had to squint, lifting a hand to shield her eyes. A black SUV sat parked about 30 meters from her, engine off, lights off. Silence swallowed everything. The car door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and he moved with flawless control, as if he knew exactly how much space his body took up in this world. No rushing, no hesitation. He simply stood there, one hand resting on the open door, watching her. Elena did not move. She could not. Every muscle in her body was stretched tight, like a drawn string. Beautiful view. His voice carried even against the strong wind, low and careful. Do you mind if I admire it with you? This is a public lookout. Elena heard her own voice, rough and dry. It is. He closed the door gently, not with the slam she had imagined. But most people wait until sunrise before they drive up here. Maybe I like the dark. He came closer, but slowly, 1 step at a time, like someone approaching a frightened animal. Smart. Or maybe you came here for the same reason I stopped. Elena turned fully to face him, anger flaring straight through the numbness. You do not know anything about why I am here. The security light at the lookout hit his face as he stepped into its reach. Over 30, maybe 35 or 36. Black hair, with early silver at both temples, even though his face looked too young to earn it. A square jaw covered in rough stubble. Eyes that looked almost black in the dim light, fixed on her with an intensity that raised goose flesh on her skin. A thin scar cut across his right eyebrow, pale against sun-browned skin. You are right, he admitted. I do not know. But I recognize that look. What look? The look of someone weighing choices you can't come back from. He stopped about 3 meters away, his hands visible at his sides, not threatening. I have seen it before. I have carried it, once. Then you know this is not your business. Maybe not. He tilted his head slightly. But I am making it my business. Call it a character flaw. Elena let out a laugh, hoarse and broken. Do you often bother strangers on cliffs? Only the ones who stand too close to the edge. His gaze dropped to her feet, only a few centimeters from where solid ground became nothing. Is there anyone I can call for you? Family? Friends? The question struck her like a slap. No. No one? Nathan is dead. The words spilled out before she could stop them, raw and sharp. 3 weeks ago, right here at this gorge. They said it was an accident, but it was not. My little brother was going to testify against the Bratva, against Volkov, and they killed him for it. They staged everything so perfectly that everyone believed it was just bad luck, bad weather, bad timing, just my brother being careless. She was breathing too fast, the words pouring out like an uncontrollable flood. I spent 2 years scraping together every dollar to get him into community college. He was going to become an accountant. Boring, safe, exactly what I wanted for him after everything we had been through. But he took a job at the wrong company, saw something he was not supposed to see, and now he is gone. And I have nothing. No family, no money, no job that pays the bills, just debt, and an eviction notice. And the truth that the man who killed my brother is still out there while everyone keeps calling it an accident. Tears burned in her eyes. She wiped them away with angry impatience. So there it is. No one to call. You can go now. Go back to whatever brought you here and forget you ever saw me. He did not go. He did not speak. He just stood there, taking in everything she had thrown at him. When he finally moved, it was one careful step forward. Volkov, he said softly. Are you sure it is him? Elena blinked. What? Viktor Volkov, the one running Russian operations in the Northwest. Are you sure he ordered your brother killed? Her heart hammered. How do you know that name? She had just told her darkest secret to a complete stranger. And what he said next would change everything. The corner of his mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. Because he has been trying to kill me for the past 6 months. Elena stood frozen. The wind still blew, her hair still lashed her face, but she could not feel anything anymore except the heavy pounding of her heart in her ears. What? He extended a hand toward her, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. My name is Dominic Valenti, and I think we should talk somewhere that is not the top of a cliff at dawn. Elena stared at his hand, at the expensive watch on his wrist, at the tailored coat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Who are you? Someone who wants Volkov gone as much as you do. His eyes held hers, steady and unblinking. Someone who did not know he had silenced a witness 3 weeks ago. Someone who can help you make your brother's death actually mean something. I do not need help. Everyone needs help. His hand stayed outstretched. And right now, you need it more than most. So I am offering a conversation, somewhere warm, with coffee, and with doors that lock. After that, if you want me to disappear, I will. Why are you doing this? You do not even know who I am. No. Something shifted in his expression, a shadow of old pain. But I know what it feels like to lose someone to Volkov's violence. I know how it eats at you, the grief turning into something darker. And I know standing on this edge will not bring them back. It only means Volkov wins twice. The wind surged, nearly shoving her forward. Elena staggered, both hands scrabbling at the air. Dominic moved fast, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. His hand caught her wrist, firm but not painful, and pulled her back from the edge. For one heartbeat they stood locked in place. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, her pulse jumping wildly beneath his thumb. Then Elena's knees gave out. Total surrender, as if someone had cut the strings that held her upright. He caught her, an arm locking around her waist, taking her weight as she collapsed. I have got you, he murmured. You are all right. I have got you. She was not all right. She had not been all right for 3 weeks, maybe longer than that. But his hold was steady, his voice even, and for the first time since the police knocked on her door, Elena was not alone with the weight of Nathan's death. She buried her face against his shoulder and sobbed, ugly sounds she could not control. He did not say everything would be fine. He did not offer cheap comfort. He just held her while she broke, one hand set between her shoulder blades, anchoring her to something outside the spiral of pain and rage inside her. When she finally ran out of tears, Elena pulled back. He released her immediately, though his hand still hovered near her elbow, as if waiting for her to fold again. I am sorry, she tried to say. Do not apologize. He studied her face, taking inventory of the damage. When was the last time you ate? She tried to remember. Failed. Yesterday. Maybe. Sleep? What is that? The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but almost. Come on, let me get you somewhere safe before you pass out. I do not even know you. You know I hate Volkov. That is more in common than most people have when they start. He gestured toward the SUV. I promise I am not planning to kill you. It is bad for business, and I have enough trouble already. I do not need random violence added to the list. It was not really a choice. Not when her apartment was 3 hours away by car and she had spent her last $20 on gas to get here. Not when exhaustion dragged at every bone in her body. Not when the other option was to go back to that cliff edge and finish what she had started. Elena walked toward the SUV. 2 strangers, 1 common enemy. An alliance begins. Dominic followed, opened the passenger side door for her with an old-fashioned courtesy that felt strange beside everything else. The interior carried a faint scent of leather and expensive cologne, warm air breathing out through the vents. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove away from the lookout without asking where she lived. Maybe he knew she had nowhere to go. Maybe he did not care. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Elena found her voice again. Nathan kept notes, she said. Dates, times, places. He was tracking the trafficking routes. Volkov's people were moving people through the port, using legitimate shipping companies as cover. Nathan worked as a warehouse supervisor. He saw things he was not supposed to see. Dominic's hands tightened on the steering wheel. How much did he record? 3 months. Ship names. Manifests that did not match the cargo. Transfer schedules. Her voice caught. He was going to give everything to the FBI. He told me 2 days before he died. Said he had worked out a witness protection deal. I begged him not to. Told him it was too dangerous. But he said somebody had to stop them. And now he is dead. And Volkov thinks the threat died with him. Maybe. Dominic went quiet for a moment, jaw clenched hard. Did he give you a copy of the documents? Hidden in my apartment. Why? Because if Volkov finds out you have them, you die too. He glanced at her, eyes so dark she could not read them. Where do you live? Portland? But I am being evicted. I have until the end of the week to clear out. Then, you are coming home with me. Elena knew she should protest. She should demand he take her back to the city. But exhaustion crashed over her like a wave, dragging her under. Her eyes slipped shut despite every effort. What is your name? Dominic asked softly. Elena. The word came out unsteady. Elena Morgan. Elena. He said it carefully, as if weighing it in his hand. Stay awake a little longer. We are almost there. Where there was, she did not know. She did not especially care. For the first time in 3 weeks, someone else was making the decisions. Someone else was carrying the weight. She could let go for one moment and believe she would not completely shatter. The SUV turned off the main highway onto a private road, the automatic gate sliding open. Through half-lidded eyes, she caught glimpses of high stone walls, security cameras, floodlights washing over manicured grounds. Then the house came into view, all modern lines and floor-to-ceiling glass, worth more money than she would see in a lifetime. Come on, Dominic said gently when they stopped. Get inside. Elena stumbled out of the SUV, her legs barely holding her up. He did not touch her, only walked beside her up wide steps to a front door that opened before they reached it. A woman in her 60s stood there, silver hair pinned into a neat bun, sharp eyes taking in Elena's appearance. Living room, Rosa? Dominic said. Food, water, and privacy. She has had too much tonight already. Rosa nodded once, crisp and efficient. Follow me. Elena followed her through rooms that blurred together, too exhausted to process anything. A bedroom appeared, bigger than her entire apartment, decorated in soft grays and pale blues. Rosa indicated the bathroom, the closet, a small refrigerator filled with water. Mr. Valenti says you should rest. Everything else can wait. The door closed behind her. Elena stood alone in a stranger's house, in a room worth more than everything she owned put together, and she felt nothing but an overwhelming relief that she was still breathing. She sank onto the bed fully dressed and surrendered to the dark. She was in the house of a mafia boss, a safe refuge, or a trap. Sunlight burned through Elena's eyelids, hauling her out of a sleep she had not believed she could find. Her body ached in unfamiliar ways, muscles stiff after finally being allowed to loosen, after weeks of wearing tension like armor. For 3 blessed seconds, she did not remember where she was, or why. Then everything rushed back. Nathan, the cliff, Dominic Valenti. She sat bolt upright too fast, her head spinning. The room looked even more expensive in daylight, all clean lines and gentle colors that probably had names like storm gray and morning mist. Her jeans were twisted around her legs, her shirt wrinkled past saving. She felt like she had been hit by a truck, then run over again in reverse just to be sure. A light knock signaled the door opening. The woman from last night appeared, carrying a tray that smelled like actual heaven. Rosa, Dominic had called her that. Good morning, Miss Morgan, she said, setting the tray on the nightstand. Mr. Valenti told me to let you rest as long as you needed. Elena glanced at the clock, 2:15 in the afternoon. She had slept nearly 12 hours. Thank you, she tried to say, her voice rough. I should probably go. I have imposed enough. Rose's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Pity, maybe, or understanding. Where would you go? The question hit her harder than it should have. I have an apartment. A few days left. Mr. Valenti is in his office when you are ready to speak with him. She moved toward the door, then paused. Coffee is fresh. So is the bread. You should eat. She left before Elena could answer. Elena stared at the tray, her stomach tightening with sudden hunger. Scrambled eggs, toast that looked homemade, fresh fruit she was certain she could not afford on a normal day, coffee in an actual ceramic mug, not the chipped disaster from Goodwill she used at home. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing but needing the fuel. Her hands shook around the mug. Caffeine or fear or exhaustion, she could not tell. When the tray was empty, she rose on legs that felt steadier than they had in weeks, and went looking for answers. The house was sprawling, room after room stitched together with a quiet kind of wealth that screamed old money. Even though she knew Dominic's fortune came from sources far less legal, she found him in what had to be his office, surrounded by dark wood and leather furniture that matched him perfectly. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. Still in last night's clothes, though he had shed the coat, white shirt rolled to the elbows, dark slacks, a watch that probably cost more than her college tuition. His dark brown eyes tracked every movement she made with the same intensity she remembered from the cliff. Elena, not a question, just an acknowledgement. How do you feel? Like I have just made a series of extremely bad decisions. She stayed in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame, anchoring herself. Thank you for the room, and the food, but I should go back to Portland. To do what? He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Clear out the apartment you can't afford? Go back to the job that can't pay the bills? That is my problem, not yours. You have evidence that can bring Viktor Volkov down. Dominic leaned forward. That makes it my problem. Elena went still. You want Nathan's notes. I want Volkov to pay. The notes are how we do that. He rose, came around the desk, but kept his distance. You stay here, safe, with someone guarding you 24/7. In return, you show me what Nathan recorded. We take him down together. Why should I trust you? Because Volkov killed my sister. His voice did not change, but his eyes went darker. 2 years ago, Lucia. She was only 22. Silence settled heavy between them. Elena looked at him differently now. Not a wealthy stranger with murky motives. A man carrying the same wound. So you understand, she said softly. More than you think. He nodded once, slow. So, will you stay? Elena drew a deep breath. She had nothing left to lose. No family, no home, no future beyond debt and despair. But she had Nathan's notes, and she had hate. Fine, she said, but I want in. I am not just sitting here waiting. Dominic studied her for a long moment, then nodded. We will see. The deal was made. Now they needed those notes. The following afternoon, Elena sat in another black SUV, but this time Dominic was not driving. Marco Valenti, Dominic's cousin, was behind the wheel, wearing an easy smile that did not match the danger in his eyes. 32 years old, broad-shouldered, and moving with the confidence of a man who knew exactly how much damage he could do if he needed to. So you are the one who kept my boss up all night, Marco said as they pulled away from the estate. Got to say, I am impressed. He usually does not care about anybody. Elena did not answer. Her gaze stayed locked on the road ahead, her stomach tightening as they drew closer to Portland. 3 hours of driving felt like an entire lifetime. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of a worn-out building in Southeast, the kind of place where the elevator was broken more often than it worked, and the neighbors learned not to ask questions. Elena led Marco up the stairs, each footstep echoing in the hollow space. She stopped at her door. Something was wrong. Wait, she whispered. Marco went tense immediately, his hand sliding inside his jacket. What is it? The lock. Elena pointed to the faint scratches around it. I did not leave it like that. He eased her back, drew a gun, and kicked the door open. The apartment was empty, but it was not exactly how she had left it. Elena stepped inside, her heart thundering. Things were subtly disturbed, drawers left half open, the couch cushion slightly off. Someone had tried to hide the signs, but she knew her home. She recognized it instantly. They have been in here, she said, her voice shaking. Marco swept each room fast, confirming no one was inside. Volkov? Who else? Elena went straight to the corner of the kitchen, where the old refrigerator stood tight against the wall. She dragged it out, pried up the loose floorboard behind it. Her fingers found the plastic bag. Still there. She pulled out the stack of papers, Nathan's notes. Seeing his handwriting made her chest tighten. They did not find it, she breathed. Which means they will come back, Marco said, eyes flicking to the windows. Volkov knows about you, knows you might have something. He just has not found it yet. Elena shoved the notes into her jacket. Nathan had died for these pages, and now she understood why. Volkov did not stop at killing a witness. He was hunting down every trace. We have to go, Marco said. Right now. They took the stairs down faster than they had climbed them. Marco checked the street before guiding her to the SUV, his gaze never stopping its sweep. Elena felt invisible eyes on her, even though she could not see anyone. The SUV surged into traffic. 10 minutes passed in tight silence. Then Marco swore. We have got a tail, he said, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. Black sedan, 2 cars back, following us from the apartment block. Elena twisted to look. Just like he said, a car was riding them, far enough back to look harmless but close enough not to lose them. Marco hit the phone control on the dashboard. It rang once before Dominic picked up. We have got a tail, Marco said, clipped. 1 car, maybe 2. They know we went to the apartment. Lose them. Come home. Dominic's voice was ice cold. Do not lead them back here. Understood. Marco ended the call and floored it. The SUV lunged forward, weaving through lanes. Elena gripped the handle, her heart climbing into her throat. The sedan accelerated after them. Marco cut right hard, tires squealing, then left, then right again. He drove like a man who knew every street, every alley, every shortcut. A truck appeared at an intersection, nearly blocking their path. Marco yanked the wheel, missing it by inches, the side mirror scraping along the truck with a piercing shriek. Elena screamed, but no sound came out. The sedan got trapped behind the truck. Marco did not slow. He shot into an alley, then out onto another main road, melting into traffic before the sedan could catch up. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, no one behind them. Marco let out a breath. We lost them. Elena sat numb, her hand still shaking as she clutched the inside pocket that held Nathan's notes. Volkov did not just know about her. He was hunting her. The game had begun. The SUV tore through the estate gates as dusk settled in. Dominic was waiting on the front steps, his posture rigid as carved stone, his face cold as ice. He did not speak when Elena got out, only swept his gaze over her from head to toe as if checking to make sure no piece of her was missing. Report, he said to Marco. Marco relayed everything. The apartment had been searched, the black sedan, the chase through Portland streets, how they had shaken the tail by inches. Dominic's jaw clenched tighter with every detail. When Marco finished, Dominic turned to his team standing behind him. Find that car. His voice was not loud, but it cut like a blade. I want to know who it belongs to, who was driving, and where they are. Within 3 hours, 2 men nodded and vanished into the darkness. Dominic led Elena inside, not touching her but staying close at her side, as if afraid she would disappear the moment he looked away. They went into his office, where she had stood this morning, as if a century had passed since then. The notes, he said. Elena pulled the stack of papers from her jacket and set it on the desk. Dominic picked it up, skimmed page after page, his eyes darkening as he read what Nathan had recorded. Your brother has enough here to bury Volkov 10 times over, he said quietly. The trafficking routes, the shell companies, the ship schedules. No wonder he wants you dead. 2 hours later, Dominic's phone vibrated. He listened, his face unreadable, then ended the call. We found them, he told Elena. 2 men, in an abandoned warehouse south of the city. Elena did not ask what he planned to do. She already knew. She followed him down to a basement she had not known existed. An empty concrete room, cold neon light, and 2 men tied to chairs in the center. Their faces were bruised, but not too brutal. Not yet. Elena stayed in the shadows at the corner, watching Dominic walk toward them. He took off his coat, rolled up his shirt sleeves slowly, each movement deliberate. His face held no emotion at all. This was the other side of the man who had held her while she cried on the cliff. Cold, ruthless, dangerous. You work for Volkov. Not a question. One of them spat at him. Go find out yourself. Dominic did not speak. He simply took the man's little finger and snapped it. Bone cracked in the room. The scream came after. "What did Volkov order?" Dominic asked, his voice still calm, like he was asking about the weather. The other man trembled, panicked eyes darting to his partner. "Find the notes. That is all. Find the notes and kill the girl if you have to. He knows she is with me? He knows." Somebody tipped him off. Inside, the police. Volkov has eyes everywhere. Elena felt her blood turn to ice. She was not only a target. She was a target being watched by an entire network. Dominic tilted his head. "Where is Volkov hiding?" "I do not know," the thug shouted. "Swear to God I do not know. Only the lieutenants know. Petrov, Kozlov, Yuri. They are the only ones." Dominic studied him for a long moment, as if weighing whether to believe him. Then he turned away, walking toward Elena. "We have 3 names," he said quietly. "Petrov handles the laundering. Kozlov runs logistics. Yuri is the killer." "What are you going to do to them?" Elena asked, eyes still fixed on the 2 men. "Let them go," Dominic said, "so they can run back and tell Volkov I am coming." Elena stared. "Why?" "Because fear is a weapon." His gaze met hers. "Volkov needs to know I am not only defending, I am hunting him." They returned to the office. Dominic spread a map of Portland across the desk, marked 3 locations. "Petrov is usually at an underground casino on the east side," he said. "Kozlov lives in a penthouse with guards 24/7. Yuri moves constantly, the hardest to track." "So we start with Petrov," Elena said. Not a question. Dominic looked at her, something shifting in his eyes. Maybe surprise. Maybe respect. "You understand this is not a game. There is no way back. My brother died because of these people." Her voice was steel. "My way back disappeared 3 weeks ago." Silence stretched. Then Dominic nodded slowly. "When do we start?" Elena asked. "Tonight." The hunt for Volkov began. The first target was Petrov. Night swallowed Portland as the SUV parked 2 blocks from the underground casino. Elena sat in the back seat, her earpiece snug, her heart beating like a war drum. Through the glass, she watched neon flicker from a building that looked like an abandoned warehouse on the outside, but held an entire underworld inside. Dmitry Petrov, Volkov's money launderer, the first target. "Remember the plan," Dominic's voice came through her earpiece. "Marco and the team go in first. Create chaos. Petrov runs for the back exit. I will be waiting there." "And me?" Elena asked. "You stay in the car. Monitor the cameras and the radio. Call it out if you see anything off." She wanted to argue, wanted to be there, to watch the enemy fall with her own eyes. But she knew she was not ready for a real battlefield. Not yet. Understood. The laptop screen in front of her showed the feed from a tiny camera clipped to Marco's shirt. The casino was crowded. Cigarette haze hanging low. The clack of poker chips. Laughter and curses braided together. Wealthy, dangerous men burned money as if tomorrow did not exist. Marco went in with 3 others. They looked like ordinary players. No one suspected a thing. Then the chaos began. A scream. A poker table overturned. The lights stuttered. Someone yelled gun even though no shot was fired. The crowd panicked, shoved, trampled each other trying to get out. Casino security ran toward the source of the commotion, abandoning everything else. On the screen, Elena saw a heavy-set man, bald, in an expensive suit, forcing his way toward the back. "Petrov. He is running for the back exit," she said into the radio. "I see him," Dominic replied. Marco's camera could not keep up with Petrov, but Elena knew what would happen next. She waited, her fingers digging into her thigh, counting the seconds. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Dominic's voice came through her earpiece. "Done. Back to the meet point." 15 minutes later, Elena stood inside another warehouse, watching Petrov strapped to a chair in the center of the room. His face was flushed, sweat streaming, but his eyes still carried arrogance. Dominic stood in front of him, arms folded over his chest. "Hello, Dmitry," Petrov snorted. "Valenti, Volkov said you would come. He knows I am hunting." "Of course he knows." Petrov tilted his head, confidence so smug it was infuriating. "You think killing me changes anything? He has eyes everywhere. In the police, in the courts, even in the people you think are allies. You are an ant trying to set the forest on fire." "I am not going to kill you," Dominic said evenly. "Not yet." For the first time, something flickered in Petrov's eyes. Not quite fear, but close. "Where is Volkov hiding?" You think I will tell you?" Dominic did not answer. He drew a small knife from his coat pocket, steel flashing under the neon. Petrov looked at the blade, then at Dominic, then back to the blade. 3 places, he blurted. He has 3 safe houses and rotates constantly. Nobody knows the schedule except Kozlov. Kozlov. He runs logistics. He knows every route, every safe place, every movement schedule. You want to find Volkov, you need Kozlov. Dominic nodded slowly, as if processing it. Then he grabbed Petrov's right hand. "Wait," Petrov screamed. I told you everything." "I know," Dominic said. "But I need to send a message." The knife came down. The scream tore the air open. Elena turned her face away, but the sound still pierced her ears like needles. When she looked again, Petrov was howling, his right hand missing 1 finger, only 4 left. Dominic held the severed finger, wrapped in a white handkerchief. "Send this to Volkov," he told Marco, with a message. "I am coming." Petrov was unbound and shoved out of the warehouse like a kicked dog. He staggered into the darkness, clutching the bleeding wound. On the drive back, Elena sat in silence beside Dominic. The image of the severed finger looped again and again behind her eyes. "Was it necessary?" she asked at last. Dominic did not look at her. "Yes. You could have gotten the information without doing that. Information is not the only thing I need," he said. "Volkov needs to know I am not playing games. That every man he sends, every lieutenant he trusts, will come back missing more parts than when he left. Fear is a weapon, and I just fired the first shot." Elena was quiet for a long time. She thought about Nathan, about the way he had died alone on the cliff, no one hearing him beg, about the way Volkov had ordered his death as if a human life was worth less than a scrap of paper. "Kozlov is next," she said. "Not a question." Dominic finally looked at her. There was something in his eyes she could not read. Maybe surprise, maybe respect, maybe something else. "Kozlov is next," he confirmed. First blood had been drawn, but Volkov would not stay silent. 2 days passed in a tight, watchful silence. Elena began to think that maybe Volkov would not react, that maybe he had been frightened, that maybe Petrov's finger had been enough to make him step back. She was wrong. The fire erupted at 3 a.m. One of Dominic's restaurants in downtown Portland, a place he used to launder money and meet with partners, became an ocean of flames within minutes. The fire crews arrived too late to save anything. When the sun rose, there was only ash and twisted steel left behind. No one was hurt. The restaurant was closed at that hour. This was not an attack. It was a warning. Elena stood beside Dominic at the edge of the ruins, the stinging smell of smoke still hanging in the air. His face was unreadable, but she could see his jaw clamped so hard she almost heard teeth grinding against teeth. "He wants you to know he can reach you," she said. "I know," Dominic answered. His phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. He opened it, and Elena watched the color drain from his face as if someone had pulled the blood out of him. "What is it?" she asked. Dominic did not answer. He only held the phone out to her. Elena looked at the screen. The world stopped. A photograph. Nathan, her brother. But not the Nathan she remembered. Not the boy with the bright smile and eyes full of hope. This was Nathan in his final moment. Bruised face, split lip, eyes flooded with fear. And beneath the picture, a single line of text. "Your brother begged. You will, too." Elena did not cry. She had cried herself empty. Instead, something else flared inside her. Something colder than tears, harder than grief, sharper than despair. Hatred. Her hands trembled as she gave the phone back to Dominic, but her voice held steady in a way that was almost frightening. "I want to be there when we take Kozlov down." "No," Dominic shook his head. "Too dangerous. He sent me a picture of my brother before he died." Elena turned to look at him, and her eyes were 2 deep black pits. "He wants me scared. He wants me to run and sob in a corner. I will not give him that. I am done. Done with running. Done with being a victim. I want in." "Elena, you can keep me here like a prisoner," she cut in. "Or you can let me fight for my brother. Choose." The silence between them stretched taut as a drawn wire. Finally, Dominic exhaled. "Marco," he called, "teach her to shoot. And basic self-defense. We have 2 days." 2 days turned into a training hell. Marco did not go easy on her. He taught her how to hold a gun, how to aim, how to squeeze the trigger without closing her eyes. He taught her how to break a grip on her wrist, how to use elbows and knees as weapons, how to turn anything within reach into a tool for survival. Elena learned fast. Her body ached, her hands bruised, but she did not stop. Every time she pulled the trigger, she saw Nathan's face in that photograph. Every time she slammed her fist into the heavy bag, she imagined it was Volkov. "You have fire," Marco said after the last session. "No wonder my boss is watching you." That night, Dominic called them into a meeting in his office. A map, photographs, and a stack of files on Kozlov covered the desk. "Kozlov is much harder than Petrov," he said. "He lives in a penthouse with security 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, cameras everywhere. He does not go out unless he has an escort. We can't hit him directly like we did Petrov." "So what is the plan?" Elena asked. Dominic went quiet for a moment, as if weighing whether he should say it at all. "Kozlov has a weakness. Women. Young, desperate, willing. He regularly receives gifts from partners. We need someone on the inside." His gaze dropped to Elena. She understood immediately. "I will do it." "No." Dominic pushed up to his feet. "That is not why I told you. I was only explaining the situation. You need someone on the inside. I am the only choice." Elena stood, facing him. "You do not have anyone else, and I will not let someone else take the risk for my brother." "You do not understand." Dominic's voice went tight as wire. "Kozlov is not like Petrov. He is brutal. If he finds out—" "Then you will be there to save me," she cut in. "Right?" Dominic stared at her for a long time. A very long time. Then he closed his eyes and breathed out as if he were enduring physical pain. "Maximum security," he said at last. "A tracker on you, a hidden mic. I will be right outside. Any sign of danger, I go in." Elena nodded. Her heart was pounding out of control, but she did not let it show on her face. She was about to walk into the enemy's den. Elena did not recognize herself in the mirror. Her dark brown hair had been dyed a pure, inky black now, curled into soft waves that spilled over her bare shoulders. Her makeup was heavier than anything she had ever worn. Black smoky eyes and blood-red lips. The dress Rosa had prepared clung to her body like a second skin. Black, short, and so expensive Elena did not dare ask the price. She looked like what Kozlov wanted. That was the point. "The tracker is in the left earring," Marco said, fastening a small diamond stud to her ear. "The micro mic is in the collar. We will hear everything." Dominic stood in the corner of the room, silent, his gaze never leaving her. His expression was unreadable, but Elena saw his jaw working, clamped tight. "Remember the plan," he said at last. "Go in, collect information, get out. No heroics, no risks. Any sign of danger, you say the words, 'Red Rose,' and I will come in." Elena nodded. Her heart was out of control inside her ribs, but her face stayed calm, flat as still water. Kozlov's penthouse sat on the 20th floor of one of Portland's most upscale towers. Elena was delivered in a glossy black car, playing the role of a gift from a business partner in Seattle that Dominic had arranged. The security at the lobby looked her up and down, making no effort to hide their hunger, then waved her through. The elevator carried her higher, her stomach tightening with each floor that slid past. The doors opened. A VIP party was unfolding inside. Low light, soft music, laughter, and the clink of glasses. Men in expensive suits, women in dresses even more expensive. All of them looked like criminals, or people who slept with criminals. Elena stepped in, shoulders back, chin lifted. She was the best actress in this room. She had to be. Kozlov lounged on a leather sofa at the center like a king on a throne, 50 years old, bloated, with a greasy smile, and eyes like two cloudy glass marbles. He wore a white silk shirt, collar open to show a mat of chest hair and a gold chain thick as a dog leash. When Elena stopped in front of him, his gaze traveled from head to toe the way a man appraises merchandise. "A gift from Seattle," the man who brought her in said. Kozlov reached out and ran his hand along Elena's bare arm. Her skin erupted in sickened goose flesh, but she swallowed it down, kept the smile on her mouth. "Pretty," he said. "Leave us." The guards withdrew. The door closed. Elena was alone with the monster. Kozlov poured liquor and pushed a glass toward her. "Drink. Relax." Elena took a tiny sip, letting the alcohol touch her lips without swallowing. She needed a clear head. He started talking, boasting about money, about power, about big deals. The liquor went into him, and the words poured out, more and more. Volkov thinks he can't be touched, Kozlov sneered, already half drunk. But I know many things. I am the one who runs everything. Without me, he is nothing. You must be very important, Elena said, her voice sweet with practiced falseness. Important? He barked a laugh. Do you know what I am doing this week? The biggest shipment of the year. A container from Asia. Millions of dollars in value. 4 days from now. Berth number 7 at the port of Portland. I will be richer than anyone in this room. Elena's heart slammed. There it was. The information she needed. What kind of container? She asked, pretending innocence. People. Kozlov looked at her with that dull, muddy stare. The best merchandise on the market, but enough business talk. He reached for her, grabbed Elena's wrist and yanked her toward him. Elena tried to pull back, but he was too strong. Wait, she said. Shut up, he snarled, something dark igniting in his eyes. You are my gift. You do not get to say no. Elena jerked her arm hard. Kozlov answered with a slap, so hard her head snapped to the side and her ear rang. You think you can refuse me? He roared, standing, shoving her down onto the sofa. Elena opened her mouth to shout the code phrase, but she did not need to. The door blew open. Dominic surged in like a storm, a gun in his hand. 2 shots dropped, the guards rushing in from the back entrance. The third buried itself in Kozlov's knee. He screamed and hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. Dominic was at Elena in 3 long strides, hauling her upright. I heard everything. We have what we need. They ran, leaving Kozlov screaming on the floor. More guards poured in, but Marco and the team had blocked the hallway. Gunfire echoed through the building like thunder. Elevator, lobby, car, escape. Elena sat in the SUV, her hands still shaking, her cheeks still burning. Dominic sat beside her, silent, eyes fixed straight ahead. You did well, he said at last. Do not ever do that again. Elena did not answer. She only thought about what Kozlov had said. 4 days. Berth number 7. A container of people. They had the intel. Now they needed action. They have the intel. 4 days until the shipment. But Volkov won't make it easy. The estate was silent when they returned. No gunfire, no shouting, no guards chasing them down. Only the quiet night and Elena's heavy breathing as she stepped through the door. Rosa was waiting with a warm towel and water. She did not ask questions, only looked at the bruise on Elena's cheek, with eyes that had seen too much violence to be shocked anymore. Elena went upstairs, peeled the dress off like shedding snakeskin. She stood under the hot shower until her skin flushed red, trying to scrub Kozlov's hands off her body. Her hands were still trembling. Maybe they would tremble for a while yet. When she stepped out, wearing the simple pajamas Rosa had left for her, Dominic was standing in the doorway. He had changed, but the tension in his face was exactly the same. May I come in? He asked. Elena nodded. Dominic walked up to her, standing closer than usual. He lifted his hand and touched her cheek lightly, where the bruise was already turning deep purple. His fingers were warm and rough against her skin. I should not have let you go, he said, his voice low and weighted. That was my choice, Elena answered, not pulling away from his touch. And it worked. Dominic's eyes went darker. There was something in them she could not read. Maybe anger, maybe worry, maybe something else entirely that she did not dare to name. The moment stretched. The space between them narrowed. Then Dominic stepped back, his hand leaving her cheek as if he had touched fire. We have 4 days, he said, his voice returning to normal. We need to prepare. Elena understood. Not yet. There was too much unfinished. They went down to the office, where Marco and 2 others were already waiting. A map of the port of Portland was spread across the desk. Berth number 7 circled in red. Kozlov said 4 days, Marco reported. A container from Asia. The biggest shipment of the year. Volkov will be there, Dominic said. He always checks the important loads. What about the police? Elena asked. I have contacted Detective Chen, Dominic replied. She will come after we have video evidence. If she comes earlier, Volkov will know and disappear. Marco frowned. There is one problem. Volkov knows Kozlov was hit. He could change the plan. He could, Dominic admitted. But he will not cancel this shipment. Too much money, too much prestige with the Asian partners. He will increase security, but he will still show. And if he runs? Elena asked. Dominic looked at her, his gaze cold as steel. He will not. His ego will not allow it. Volkov thinks he is untouchable. He will not believe we would dare strike on his home ground. And that will be his last mistake, Marco said. Dominic nodded once. 4 days. We end this. Elena stared at the map, at the red circle around berth number 7. 4 days from now, she would face the man who had killed her brother. The countdown had begun. The next morning, the information from Kozlov was analyzed more closely. Marco had questioned more of the men taken from the penthouse, and one name kept surfacing again and again. Yuri Sokolov, Volkov's right arm, the one who handled problems, the killer. Dominic called Elena into his office, his face darker than usual. There is something you need to know. Elena sat down, her heart already starting to beat faster. What is it? Kozlov gave more before we let him go. Dominic paused, as if weighing every word. About the person who carried out what happened to Nathan. The world stopped. Who? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Yuri Sokolov. He is the one who drove Nathan off the road, the one who made sure the accident looked real, the one who confirmed Nathan was dead before he left. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Everything around her went mist white. But she did not cry. She had been out of tears for a long time. I want to be the one who takes him down, she said, her voice so cold she barely recognized it as her own. Dominic studied her for a long moment. Yuri is not like Petrov or Kozlov. He is a trained assassin, much more dangerous. I do not care. Silence. Then Dominic nodded. Yuri moves constantly, hard to track, he said, but he has one habit. Every Thursday, he goes to see his mistress in the suburbs, a small house out in Gresham. Today is Thursday. It is. Night came like a promise written in blood. Elena sat in the car with Dominic and Marco, about 50 meters from Yuri's mistress's small house. They had waited 2 hours, darkness draping over them like a cloak. A black car pulled up in front of the house. Yuri stepped out. Alone. He was tall and lean, blonde hair cut short in a military style, moving with the precise economy of a man who had killed many times and never lost sleep over it. He went inside, stayed 45 minutes, then came back out. That was when they moved. Dominic and Marco appeared from opposite sides, guns leveled. Elena stepped out of the dark, facing the man who had killed her brother. Yuri did not panic. He only stood there, looking at them with a strange amusement. Valenti, and the sister. His voice carried that unmistakable Russian edge. I wondered when you would finally come. His gaze paused on Elena. You look like him, Nathan. He had eyes like that when I... Dominic hit him in the face before he could finish. Yuri went down, still smiling, blood on his lips. They dragged him into an abandoned warehouse nearby, tied him to a chair. But Yuri was not like Petrov or Kozlov. He was not afraid. He even looked bored. Where is Volkov? Dominic asked. Yuri smiled. Kill me. Volkov will kill you either way. Marco punched him in the stomach. Yuri coughed, still smiling. Where is he? Everywhere. Nowhere. You will never find him. More punches, more laughter. Yuri was the kind of man who had accepted death a long time ago and had nothing left to lose. Dominic and Marco exchanged a helpless look. That was when Elena moved. She stepped forward, drew the gun from Marco's waistband before he could react. She aimed straight at Yuri's knee. Where is he? Each word dropped like a bullet. Yuri looked at her, and for the first time there was something other than amusement in his eyes. You do not have the nerve, little sister. You are not that kind of person. Elena fired. The blast tore the air. Yuri screamed, his right knee shattered, blood spraying like a broken faucet. Elena did not blink. She shifted the gun to his other knee, then the hands, then other things. You have all night. Yuri's eyes were panic now. This was not the girl he had imagined. This was the monster he had created when he killed Nathan. The warehouse on 5th Street, he screamed. Volkov will be there for the shipment. 20 to 30 guards. He will come at 2 a.m. to check the cargo. Elena lowered the gun. Her hand did not shake. She turned to Dominic. What do we do with him? Dominic looked at her with something she had never seen before. Not fear, not horror, but respect. You decide, he said. Elena looked at Yuri, the man who had killed her brother, moaning in pain at her feet. She could kill him right now. 1 shot to the head. Finish it. But she chose something else. Let him go, she said. Let him crawl back to Volkov and tell him we are coming. The location was confirmed, but Elena had crossed a line. There was no way back. 2 days passed like 2 centuries. The estate became a war command center. Weapons were checked and cleaned. Body armor was handed out. Communication gear tested one last time. Maps of the warehouse on 5th Street were spread over every flat surface, marked with red arrows and blue circles. Elena stood at the table, watching Marco point to each location. 3 entrances, he said. The main door in front, a back service door, and an emergency exit on the side. Volkov will have guards on all 3. How many guards? Dominic asked. According to Yuri, 20 to 30, heavily armed. They are waiting for us. And how many do we have? 8, plus her. Marco glanced at Elena. The numbers were bad, 1 against 3 or 4. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood. We need the element of surprise, Dominic said. They know we are coming, but they do not know when or from which direction. The container docks at 1 in the morning. Volkov will show up around 2 to inspect the cargo. That is when he is least on guard. What about the police? Elena asked. Detective Chen will hold outside the perimeter with a rapid response team. Once we have video proof of Volkov with the container of people, she moves in. That is when he can't get away. The plan sounded simple, but Elena knew no plan survived contact with the enemy. They were walking into the lion's den, and not everyone would come back. On the last night before the fight, Elena could not sleep. She wandered the dark estate, barefoot on cold wood floors. Moonlight slipped through the glass, painting silver lines on the walls. She stopped on the balcony and stared out at the black garden. You can't sleep either? Elena did not startle. She had heard Dominic's footsteps behind her. Too much in my head, she said. Dominic stood beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. They were quiet for a while, looking into the same darkness. After this is over, he began. Let us survive first, Elena cut in. Then we will talk. Dominic turned to her. In the moonlight, his eyes looked like 2 deep pools, full of things left unsaid. If tomorrow does not go well, he said. You will not die, Elena said, flat with certainty. I will not allow it. The corner of Dominic's mouth curved into a small smile, the first she had seen in days. He lifted a hand and touched her cheek, his fingers brushing lightly over her skin. Then he bent down and kissed her. Gentle, brief, but loaded with promises for a future neither of them knew would exist. When he pulled back, Elena realized she was holding her breath. A promise, he said, for later. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice if she opened her mouth. The next morning, everything was ready. The team stood in a line in the main hall, dressed in black, fully equipped. Their faces were grim, focused. Dominic stepped forward and looked at each of them. Tonight we end Volkov. Elena stood beside him, a gun heavy at her hip. For Nathan, she said. Dominic nodded once. For everyone he has hurt. One more night, then everything would change. Fog crawled up from the water like ghostly fingers, swallowing the port of Portland in a thick, milky white. Salt air hit Elena's nose, mixed with the stink of diesel and rust. Somewhere in the dark, waves slapped against a ship's hull, steady, like the heartbeat of a sleeping monster. 2 in the morning, berth number 7. Elena sat in the vehicle with Marco, about 200 meters from the warehouse. The laptop screen in front of her showed the feed from cameras clipped to Dominic and the other members. 8 points of light moved through the darkness, closing in on the warehouse from 3 directions. Her heart hammered inside her chest. A large truck rolled onto the berth, its headlights cutting through the fog. It stopped in front of the container that had just been lowered from the ship. The container doors opened, and then Elena heard it. Crying, pleading, human voices. Dozens of people packed into a cramped, dark, filthy space. Women, children, treated like cargo. Elena's fist clenched so hard her nails bit into her palm. She thought about Nathan, about the way he had seen this, and decided he had to act, about the way he had died for daring to speak. A black SUV slid onto the berth like a venomous snake. 4 guards stepped out first, guns in hand, eyes sweeping the fog. Then the rear door opened. Volkov stepped out. Elena held her breath. He was taller than she had imagined, white-gray hair cut neat and short, an expensive wool coat, the walk of a man who believed the world belonged to him. His face was stone cold, his gray eyes scanning the container with the detached interest of a man inspecting livestock. This was him, the one who had killed her brother, the one behind the suffering. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to burst out of the car and pull the trigger until the gun went empty. But she forced herself to stay still, to wait. Volkov walked to the container and looked inside. He said something to his men, gave a thin smile when a woman inside the container screamed and begged. Dominic's voice came through the earpiece. "All teams, move!" Hell broke open. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions. Volkov's guards reacted instantly, ducking behind vehicles and containers, firing back in a storm. Bullets rang off metal, glass shattered, men shouted and cursed in Russian. On the screen, Elena saw Dominic move like a ghost, dropping 2 guards in quick succession, but Volkov's men were too many. They poured out like ants, from inside the warehouse, from behind the containers, from everywhere. One of Dominic's men went down, then another. Marco swore beside her. Too many. More than we planned for. On the screen, Elena saw Marco's man take a shot to the shoulder, still fighting, his left hand clamped to the wound while his right kept firing. Chaos, smoke, blood. Then Elena saw what made her blood freeze. Volkov. While everyone was busy fighting, he slipped out the back door of the warehouse. Alone. No guards. He was running. "He is running!" Elena screamed into the radio. "Back door! Volkov is running." No one answered. The gunfire was too loud. Too many screams. Elena stared at the screen, watched Volkov vanish into the fog, watched her brother's killer about to escape. No, not this time. She shoved the door open and jumped out. "Elena!" Marco shouted behind her. "Get back!" But she was already running. Her boots hit wet concrete, fog wrapping around her, the gun locked tight in her grip. She ran for the back door, ran toward where Volkov had disappeared. The alley was black as ink. Elena ran on instinct, ears straining for footsteps ahead. He was there. She knew he was there. Then the alley ended. A tall brick wall blocked the way. Dead end. Volkov stood there, his back to the wall, his face turned toward Elena. In the distant, weak streetlight, she saw him smile. "Little sister," he said, that Russian edge in his voice. Alone, convenient. He had a gun too, aimed straight at her. Elena lifted her gun, her heart pounding hard enough to burst. They stood 10 meters apart, 2 barrels pointed at each other, fog swirling like ghosts bearing witness. This was the moment, facing the man who had killed her brother. No backup, no escape. Who would fire first? 10 meters, the distance between life and death. Elena stood there with her gun raised, her heart pounding hard enough to break her ribs. Fog coiled around them like spirits waiting, and the faraway streetlights were only strong enough to sketch the enemy's face in thin lines of light. Volkov did not panic. He stood there with his gun trained on her, a faint smile on his mouth as if this were a game, and he already knew the ending. "You look like him," he said, his Russian-edged voice cold as ice. "Nathan, the same eyes, the same stupid courage." Elena did not answer. Her hands trembled slightly, but the gun stayed steady. "He begged me to spare you, you know," Volkov went on, his tone like someone telling a late-night story. "Said you were all he had. Said he would do anything if I would leave you alone." Pain tore through Elena's chest, but she did not let it show on her face. "I told him I would come for you later." Volkov smiled. "I would take my time. I would let you learn what real suffering is before you die." "Keep talking," Elena said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Buy yourself as much time as you want." "Time?" Volkov gave a short, contemptuous laugh. "Dominic is coming. Your men are all dead. The game is over. You think Valenti cares about you?" He tilted his head, eyes like 2 cold glass marbles. "You are a tool. When he is finished, you will be thrown away like everyone else. He is Mafia. We do not have hearts. Shut up. You do not know, do you, how many women he has had before you?" Volkov continued, his voice venom. "How many he promised, then left behind. You are nothing to him. Shut up." Volkov saw the crack in her wall. His smile widened. "Do you know Nathan said your name before he died?" He murmured, almost gently. "I told Yuri to tell him exactly what I would do to you. Every detail. He died knowing he had failed to protect you." Tears spilled from Elena's eyes. She could not stop them. The picture of Nathan in his last seconds, in pain, terrified, calling her name, begging for her to be safe, but her gun stayed up. Volkov saw the tears. He took 1 step forward. "You can't shoot me," he said, his confidence thick, like he was stating an obvious truth. You are not a killer. I can see it in your eyes. The hesitation. The fear. Another step. 8 meters. Put the gun down. I will make it quick. Quicker than Nathan. Another step. 7 meters. You will see your brother again. Is that not what you want? On the cliff that night, you were ready to jump. 6 meters. He was closer now. Elena looked at him. Looked at the man who had killed Nathan. The man who had wrecked her life. The man who thought she was weak. He was wrong. Elena fired. Not at his head. Not at his chest. At his leg. The gunshot ripped through the quiet night. Volkov screamed and collapsed like a dropped sack, his gun skidding out of his hand. Blood burst from his knee, soaking into the damp concrete. Elena stepped closer, her gun still trained on him. You are right, she said, her voice cold as steel. I am not a killer, but I do not need to be. Volkov shrieked in pain, reaching for the gun on the ground. Elena stomped on his hand, bone cracking under her heel. Footsteps pounded toward them from behind. Dominic surged into the alley, gun in hand, eyes taking in the scene. Volkov on the ground, bleeding. Elena standing over him, gun pointed down, her face carved from ice. Dominic did not speak. He did not take the gun from her hand. He did not stop her. He only stood beside her, silent, waiting. Your choice, he said at last. Your brother. Elena looked down at Volkov. Her brother's killer, a trafficker, a man who had caused so much suffering. He lay there, moaning, drenched in blood, utterly helpless. She could kill him right now. One bullet to the head, end it, revenge for Nathan. Her finger rested on the trigger. Kill him, or let him live. The choice was hers, and it would define who she became. Elena's finger rested on the trigger, trembling, but it did not move away. Volkov looked up at her from the pool of his own blood, and what made her shiver was that he was smiling, a twisted smile, painful, but still a smile. Do it, he rasped. Become like me. Elena did not answer. You will never forget your first kill, Volkov went on, gray eyes locked on hers. It changes you. Forever. Every time you close your eyes, you will see my face. Every night, in your dreams, I will be there. Elena felt her grip tighten around the gun. You think killing me will bring you peace? He sneered. It will only turn you into me, and I will win, even in death. Dominic stood beside her, silent, not intervening. When Elena glanced at him, he only said, Whatever you decide, I am here. Elena looked back at Volkov. Nathan's killer. A trafficker. A man who had ruined so many lives. What would Nathan want? She thought of her brother. Of his smile. Of the way he kept believing in something good, even when the world proved otherwise. Nathan had chosen to testify not out of hatred, but to save other people. Because he wanted to do what was right. Could she live with killing a man? Even a man who deserved to die? Did Volkov deserve to change who she was? The answer came to her as clear as daylight. Elena lowered the gun. Volkov blinked, and for the first time he looked surprised. No, she said, her voice strangely steady. You do not get to turn me into a killer, he snarled. Weak. You will rot in prison, Elena went on, not letting him cut in. Every day, knowing I am the one who put you there, a girl you dismissed, the sister of the man you killed. Nathan's notes will bury you. She crouched, looking straight into his eyes. That is worse than death for someone like you, Volkov exploded. You little... He lunged for the gun on the ground, fingers brushing the grip. Dominic fired. No hesitation, no thought. The bullet punched into Volkov's hand, bone and blood spraying. Volkov screamed and curled in on himself. Dominic stepped in, planted his foot on Volkov's chest, pinning him to the concrete. She chose mercy, he said, his voice ice-cold. I did not. Volkov glared up at him, hatred burning. But killing you would be too easy, Dominic continued. She is right. Life in prison. Everyone will know Viktor Volkov was brought down by a girl in her brother's notes. Your empire collapses, not because of another mafia boss, because of a 27-year-old woman you thought was weak. Sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights pulsed through the fog. Detective Chen led the police team flooding into the alley. She took in the scene, Volkov bleeding on the ground, Elena and Dominic standing over him, and understood immediately. Viktor Volkov, she said, her tone flat and cold. You are under arrest for human trafficking, murder, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. 2 officers cuffed Volkov and hauled him upright. Blood ran from his leg and his hand, but his eyes still burned with hate. As they dragged him past Elena, he stopped. "This is not over," he growled. Elena met his gaze without blinking. "It is over." Volkov was shoved into the police car. The door slammed. Blue and red lights strobed as it rolled away, disappearing into the fog. Elena stood there, watching until the lights were gone. Then she exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath her entire life. Dominic set a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" Elena considered the question. She had shot a man, faced her brother's killer, chosen not to become an executioner. "Not yet," she said honestly. "But I will be." Volkov was under arrest. But was this truly the end, or only the beginning of something else? Dawn began to tint the sky pink when it was finally over. Elena stood beside the container, watching the victims being led out one by one. 23 people. Women, children, a few men. Thin, terrified, but alive. Blankets were wrapped around their shoulders, water pressed into their hands, and they were guided toward the ambulances waiting nearby. 23 lives. Nathan had died trying to save them, and now they were free. Police filled the area, collecting evidence, taking photographs, interviewing witnesses. Dominic's team had melted back into the shadows before law enforcement arrived, but Elena knew they had paid a price. 2 men were badly wounded, being rushed to the hospital, but no one died. It felt like a miracle. Detective Chen walked up beside Elena, her face exhausted, but something like satisfaction living in her eyes. "Your brother's notes saved a lot of lives tonight," she said. Elena did not answer, only nodded. "His death will not be meaningless," Chen continued. "We will officially reopen the investigation. Nathan Morgan will be recognized as a hero, not the victim of a traffic accident." Tears rose in Elena's eyes, but she did not let them fall. "Not yet." "Thank you," she whispered. Chen nodded once, then turned away to handle the work. Dominic appeared at Elena's side, and that was when she noticed. "You are hurt," she said, eyes fixed on the blood soaking through his shirt at his left shoulder. Dominic glanced down as if he had forgotten. "Just a scratch. Scratches do not bleed that much." "I am fine," he said, his voice hard as steel. "We need to leave before there are too many questions." They drove back to the estate in silence. When they arrived, Rosa was waiting at the door, her worry turning instantly into anger when she saw Dominic's wound. "Stubborn fool," she scolded, hauling him inside. "Sit down, now." Elena stood and watched as Rosa tended the injury, dug the bullet out, stitched him up. Dominic did not flinch, did not make a sound. He only sat there, eyes fixed on nothing, as if he were thinking about someplace far away. When Rosa finished and left, Elena and Dominic remained in the office. Silence settled over them, but it was not the uncomfortable kind. It was the quiet of 2 people who had walked through hell together and lived. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt peace. "You could have killed him," Dominic said at last. "I know. Why did you not?" Elena thought about the question. She had been thinking about it the whole drive back. "Because Nathan would not have wanted that," she said. "He died because he wanted Volkov brought to justice, not because he wanted revenge. If I killed him, I would betray everything Nathan stood for." Silence. Then Dominic reached across and took her hand. Warm, steady. They sat like that for a long time, needing nothing else. "What happens now?" Elena asked finally. "Now we make sure he never gets out," Dominic answered. "And after that?" He turned to her, dark brown eyes softening in a way she had never seen before. "Whatever you want." Volkov was in prison, but the story was not finished. A week later, Viktor Volkov's face was on every news broadcast. Russian crime boss arrested. Headlines crawled across every channel, across the front page of every paper. Largest West Coast trafficking ring dismantled. 23 victims rescued in nighttime raid. Elena sat in Dominic's office, watching the coverage with a cup of coffee gone cold in her hands. She watched the footage of Volkov being led into the courthouse, handcuffs glittering under camera flashes, his face cold as stone, but his eyes burning with hate. He was charged with dozens of counts: human trafficking, first-degree murder, money laundering, extortion. The list was so long the prosecutor needed 10 minutes just to read it aloud. The evidence was too much. Nathan's notes, video from the night of the raid, testimony from the 23 victims. No lawyer, no matter how good, could save him. Petrov and Kozlov turned fast, For reduced sentences, they gave up everything. Every trafficking route, every laundering account, every corrupt official in Volkov's pocket. The network he had built over 2 decades collapsed like dominoes. 5 police officers in the Portland department were arrested for taking bribes and covering up crimes. Among them was the one who had tipped Volkov off about Elena. They would go to prison alongside their boss, but the most important news came on the 5th day. Elena's phone vibrated. An unknown number, but she answered. "Miss Morgan? This is Special Agent Harrison with the FBI." A serious male voice. "I am calling to inform you that Nathan Morgan's death has officially been reclassified as a homicide." Elena's heart skipped a beat. "Yuri Sokolov has been charged with first-degree murder," the agent continued. "And I want you to know your brother was a hero. His notes saved dozens of lives and helped us dismantle one of the largest trafficking rings in the United States." Elena could not speak. Tears slipped down her cheeks in silence. "Thank you," she finally whispered. That afternoon, Elena stood at Nathan's grave, alone, with a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, the kind Nathan liked. "We did it, Nate," she said, her voice shaking. "All of them will pay for what they did to you. Volkov, Yuri, Petrov, Kozlov, all of them." She sat down in the grass and set the flowers at the base of the headstone. "I wish you could see this. You would probably call me crazy. You would scold me for taking on the Russian mafia." A small laugh broke through her tears. "But you would be proud too. I know you would." A light wind moved through the cemetery, stirring branches and carrying the clean scent of fresh-cut grass. "I miss you. Every day. But I will be okay. I promise." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unidentified number. "It is not over, Miss Morgan." Elena stared at the message and knew immediately where it came from. Volkov, through his lawyer or someone still loyal. She was not afraid. She typed back a single word. "Try." When she stood, Dominic was waiting at a distance, leaning against the SUV, giving her the private space she needed. He did not ask questions when she reached him. He only showed her the message from Volkov. "He will not touch you," Dominic said, his voice hard as steel. "Never." Elena nodded. She believed him. She looked back at Nathan's grave one last time, then turned to Dominic. "Take me home." Justice had been done, but what future was waiting for Elena? 3 months later, Elena walked into the federal courtroom in a black suit, her heart strangely calm. The room was packed. Reporters, attorneys, witnesses, and curious faces gathered to watch the trial of the century. Viktor Volkov sat at the defense table in handcuffs, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, yet still carrying himself with arrogance, as if he were seated on a throne. When Elena stepped up to the witness stand, his gray eyes burned into her, trying to threaten, trying to make her shake. She did not look away. "Please tell the jury about your brother," the prosecutor said. Elena drew a slow breath. "Nathan Morgan, 23 years old when he was killed. He worked as a warehouse supervisor and discovered Volkov was trafficking people through the port of Portland. He kept records of everything and agreed to testify. And what happened to him?" "They killed him." Elena looked straight at Volkov. "They staged it as a car accident. Yuri Sokolov, on the orders of this man, drove his car off the cliff." The courtroom went silent. Elena continued, telling them about the night she stood on the cliff, about finding the notes, about everything that followed. "This man murdered my brother," she finished, her voice steady as steel, "and dozens of others. He sold human beings like merchandise. He deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his life." Volkov's lawyer rose, a polished smile on his face. "Miss Morgan, you are currently living with Dominic Valenti, correct? A notorious criminal?" "Dominic Valenti saved my life," Elena answered without blinking. "So is this not just a war between 2 mafia crews? You are only a pawn in their power game?" "Dominic Valenti saved my life," Elena repeated, her voice harder. "Volkov took my brother's life. That is the difference." The prosecutor stood and played a video on the screen. Footage from the night of the raid. Volkov standing by the container, giving orders to his men. The victim's cries rang out. Then, his voice, clear as day, "Kill anyone who gets in the way." The jury watched in stunned silence. Nathan's notes came next. Page after page, detail after detail, evidence that could not be denied. Then came the testimony of the rescued victims. A young woman described 3 months locked inside a container. A 14-year-old girl described being treated like livestock. A man spoke of the wife who died during transport. No lawyer could turn black into white. After 2 weeks of trial, the jury needed only 4 hours to decide. On all counts, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Reporters hammered at their phones. Volkov's lawyer bowed his head in defeat. The judge struck the gavel. Viktor Volkov, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Volkov exploded. He lurched to his feet, handcuffs clanging, his face purple with rage. I will kill both of you, he screamed, eyes wild. Do you hear me? I will. Guards surged in, forced him down, dragged him out of the courtroom. His screams echoed down the corridor until the doors slammed shut. Elena rose, calm, and watched him go. No fear, no hatred anymore. Only overwhelming relief. She walked out of the courthouse, where Dominic was waiting by the SUV. The press swarmed, cameras flashing, questions shouted in her face. Elena did not answer. She only got into the car, shut the door, and left it all behind. Dominic drove them away from the crowd. It is over, Elena said. Yeah, he nodded. It is over. Volkov was gone for good. But where would Elena go from here? 6 months later, Elena sat in her own office at the estate, staring at her article on the front page of the New York Times. Inside Volkov's trafficking empire, an exclusive investigation. Her name sat right beneath the headline, Elena Morgan, investigative reporter. The piece had taken 3 months to write, every word weighed, every detail verified. She wrote about Nathan, about the victims, about the corruption that had allowed Volkov to operate for 2 decades. She did not mention Dominic. She did not reveal anything that could harm him. The article hit like an earthquake. Major outlets called asking her to write more. A publisher offered a 6-figure book deal. The career she had thought was dead was blooming harder than it ever had. No more debt. No more eviction notices. No more worrying about rent or electricity bills. And she was still at the estate. Not because she needed shelter, not because she had no other choice, but because she wanted to be here, with him. Elena knew who Dominic was, knew what he did, knew his world was not as cleanly black and white as the law demanded. He was not perfect, not legal, but he was hers. Rosa knocked and came in carrying a tray of toast with butter and homemade jam. You need to eat, she said, setting the tray on the desk. Working too much, thin as a stick. Elena smiled. Thank you, Rosa. The housekeeper had become the mother Elena had lost long ago, teaching her to make pasta from a family recipe, scolding her when she forgot to eat, forcing her to rest when she worked too late. Marco, too. He called her little sister every time he saw her, making Elena shake her head and laugh. He told terrible jokes, taught her more self-defense, and protected her like she was blood. They were family. The new family Elena had found in the ashes of loss. That night, Elena stood on the balcony, watching city lights glitter in the distance. Dominic stepped out and stood beside her in silence. Do you regret anything? He asked at last. Elena thought about the question, about everything that had happened, about the night on the cliff, about the decision to climb into the SUV of a stranger, about blood and tears and fear. A lot, she said honestly, but not staying. Not me? Elena turned to him. Moonlight traced the lines of his face, highlighting the scar through his eyebrow and the early silver at his temples. Especially not you. Dominic reached for her and pulled her closer. When he kissed her, there was no desperation the way there had been before. No fear of loss. Only the peace and certainty of 2 people who had found each other. When they parted, forehead to forehead, Elena whispered, "Now what?" Dominic smiled, the rare smile she loved. Now we live. She had found justice. She had found love. One piece remained to close it. 1 year later, Elena returned to the Columbia River Gorge, to the same place, the same cliff, the same lookout where she had stood in the darkness 12 months earlier, ready to end everything, but this time everything was different. Golden afternoon sun flooded the valley. The Columbia River glittered below like a ribbon of silver. The wind carried the scent of pine and the smell of wet earth after rain. Birds sang somewhere in the forest, and the murmur of running water rose faintly from far away. Dominic stood beside her in silence and said nothing. He knew she needed to do this. Knew there are moments when words are unnecessary. Elena walked to the edge and looked down, and she remembered that night. Cold, dark, desperate. She remembered numbness cutting through her jeans, remembered the wind whipping her hair into her face, remembered the sound of gravel dropping into a bottomless black. She remembered how she had wanted to jump, wanted everything to end, wanted the pain to stop. She said softly that she had almost died here. Dominic came closer and told her that she had not. And no, she had not, because his headlights had swept through the dark, because he had stopped, because he had caught her wrist and pulled her back from the edge. Elena opened the backpack she had brought and took out a small wooden box. Inside were Nathan's ashes. She said with a slight tremor in her voice that he had loved this place, that he used to say this place made him feel free, that from here every problem became small. She opened the lid. Pale gray ash lay quietly inside. She said goodbye. Nate, she tipped the box. The wind received the ashes and carried them up, spinning them in the afternoon light, like thousands of golden specks of dust. Then they drifted down into the gorge, joining the river, joining the world Nathan had loved. Elena whispered, "Thank you for saving me, even when you are not here." Because Nathan had saved her. His notes, his courage, the memory of him had given her a reason to fight instead of giving up. Elena stood there for a long time, watching the river carry what remained of her brother toward the sea. Then she turned back and took Dominic's hand. No more pain, no more despair, only a peace she never believed she would find again. She told him it was time to go home. On the drive back, Dominic drove in silence for a while before asking if she was okay. Elena looked out the window at the landscape sliding past. Green trees, blue sky, life continuing, and she smiled, a real smile. She said yes, she was okay, and for the first time in her life, she truly believed it. The cliff had once called to her, but she had chosen to stay, and now she had every reason to live. This is the story of Elena and Dominic, a story of loss and finding again, of darkness and light, of standing on the brink of despair and finding a hand that pulls you back. This story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope can appear from places we never expect, that justice may be delayed but is never absent, that love can bloom from the ashes of suffering, and that we are stronger than we think. If you are going through a hard time, please remember you are not alone. There is always someone willing to take your hand and pull you back from the edge if you allow them to come close. If you have stayed until the end of this story, thank you so much. You are wonderful. This story was written with all of our hearts, and we hope it touched your heart. How did this story make you feel? Which part moved you the most? Did Elena's story make you think of anything in your own life? We would truly love to hear what you feel from deep in your heart. Please share it in the comments below. If you liked this story, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, press like, and share the video with the people you love. Every subscription, every like, every share is a huge motivation for us to keep bringing you moving stories every day. We wish everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, a peaceful spirit, and reasons to smile every day. Goodbye, and see you again in the next video.